Welcome back to Historical Documentary Official. In today's documentary, we uncover a story that shaped the world.
In the rolling hills of southern France, during the late 14th century, villages were small clusters of wooden and stone houses surrounded by tilled fields and dense forests. Life was harsh, yet communities thrived on the rhythm of seasons, religious observances, and local trade. It was in such a village that a girl named Marie was born. Her family were modest farmers, their lives governed by the soil, the animals, and the whims of the weather. Her birth was met with quiet celebration, another child to carry on the work of the land, but also with apprehension. Infant mortality was a shadow that loomed over every family, and even the strongest children were not guaranteed survival. Marie's early years were marked by routine and simplicity. She learned to carry water, tend animals, and help in the fields. Her mother, a woman known for her knowledge of herbs and folk remedies, instructed her on the ways of plants that could heal bruises, ease fevers, or calm restless nights. Her father taught her to recognize the cycles of the seasons, the signs of approaching storms, and the importance of hard work. In a world without formal education, such knowledge was survival itself, yet, in the cultural milieu of medieval Europe, superstition and folklore were inseparable from daily life. Local women, often midwives or healers, whispered of children who seemed marked by fate, those who slept unusually long or fell unconscious under mysterious circumstances. Such beliefs were rooted not in fantasy but in real observations of conditions that medicine of the time could not explain: fevers, infections, fainting spells, or rare metabolic disorders. These women told stories of girls who lay in deep sleep for days, sometimes weeks, and families interpreted them as signs of divine intervention, curses, or hidden destiny. By the age of 7, Marie had grown into a lively, curious child, climbing the lofts of barns and playing near the stables. One day, while fetching water from an upper floor, she fell from a stairway that had long been considered unsafe. The villagers who witnessed the accident rushed her to her home, where her mother and neighbors attempted to treat her injuries. They applied poultices made from herbs, wrapped her in blankets, and prayed. But something was wrong. Her breathing was shallow, her pulse faint. Marie had slipped into a deep coma, a state that would continue for many months, and later, years. Local physicians and traveling apothecaries came to examine her, offering remedies ranging from herbal infusions to ritual prayers. Some were well-intentioned, others were charlatans seeking payment from desperate parents. None could awaken her. The villagers watched with a mixture of awe and fear as the girl lay motionless on a straw bed, her pale face framed by soft hair. Her case became a subject of quiet conversation in nearby villages. Travelers passing through would recount the story of the girl who slept, and whispers of the sleeping child of Saint Laurent spread along trade routes. Her family's devotion never wavered. Her mother maintained her daily care, ensuring that her body remained nourished, that wounds healed properly, and that she was protected from infection. Her father repaired the home, tended the fields, and consulted distant relatives for advice. Even the local priest became part of her story, performing blessings and rituals that were believed to protect her soul while her body lay inert. Historians now speculate that Marie's condition may have been caused by a combination of factors: traumatic brain injury from the fall, infection, and perhaps a rare metabolic disorder that prevented normal recovery. Yet for those living at the time, such distinctions were irrelevant. Her state was inexplicable and frightening, a tangible reminder of the fragility of life in the Middle Ages. During her long unconsciousness, the village itself continued to evolve. Seasons turned, crops were sown and harvested, children grew, and the rhythms of life pressed on, indifferent to her plight. Marie's siblings, once close in age, learned the harsh lessons of survival in a world without certainty. She remained suspended in time, a living mystery within the ever-changing landscape of her community. The tale of Marie's prolonged sleep was eventually recorded in parish records and letters exchanged between neighboring villages. Chroniclers noted the event not as legend but as a curious medical occurrence. Their descriptions emphasized the reality of her parents' dedication, the efforts of local healers, and the marvel that such a child could survive at all, given the medical limitations of the time. As the years passed, Marie's story became woven into the oral traditions of the region. Children heard whispers of the girl who slept, and older villagers used her tale to caution against recklessness near dangerous heights or to inspire devotion to God. The narrative took on symbolic qualities, embodying human endurance, parental love, and the mysteries of life and death. Yet beneath the symbolism remained the raw, factual account of a girl whose life was altered irreversibly by a single moment and a world unprepared to heal her. By situating Marie's story within the historical context of medieval life, we begin to understand how such an extraordinary event could give rise to the myths and legends that would centuries later become the fairy tales known worldwide. What later storytellers would embellish with princes, curses, and magical awakenings was in truth a remarkable account of human resilience, community care, and the fragility of life in an unforgiving era. Even today, the chronicles of Saint Laurent and surrounding villages preserve fragments of her story. The girl who slept was neither enchanted nor royal. She was a child of her time, and her survival was testament to the combined efforts of family, community, and sheer human determination. It is from these roots, grounded in historical reality, that the legend of Sleeping Beauty ultimately emerged, evolving from fact into folklore, and from folklore into the tales that have captivated imaginations for centuries. The months turned into years, and Marie remained in her motionless state. In a small farmhouse nestled among rolling hills and dense forests, life continued around her. The villagers, initially skeptical of her condition, had grown accustomed to her presence. Children who once played by her side had become adolescents, learning trades, tending animals, and carrying on the work of survival in a harsh, unforgiving world. The rhythm of daily life continued, indifferent to the fragile child suspended in time on a simple straw bed. Her parents' lives were irrevocably changed. Her mother, once a vibrant woman who worked in the fields alongside her husband, devoted every waking hour to Marie's care. She prepared herbal infusions, kept the girl's body clean and nourished, and sang gentle songs over her, believing that sound and warmth could preserve life in a way medicine could not. Her father labored tirelessly in the fields, ensuring that the household survived and that food was available, both for himself and for the girl who lay in quiet stillness. Their devotion was absolute, rooted not in magic, but in the unwavering human instinct to protect the young and vulnerable. Local healers and itinerant physicians continued to examine Marie periodically, often with conflicting theories. Some suggested that she had suffered a severe brain injury that had altered her consciousness permanently, while others believed it was a rare illness that caused extreme metabolic shutdown. The remedies were a mixture of observation, herbal treatments, and ritual, an intersection of the practical and the mystical. Few could comprehend the complexity of her condition, and even fewer could offer effective treatment. The villagers themselves were caught between fear and fascination. They whispered stories of the sleeping child, embellishing her condition with supernatural interpretations, yet the accounts preserved by chroniclers emphasized the grounded reality, a girl in a prolonged coma, maintained by the steadfast care of her family. Scholars in nearby towns occasionally heard of her case and recorded it as an unusual medical phenomenon, noting the rarity of survival in such circumstances without modern interventions. Despite her inactivity, Marie's presence influenced the rhythm of the village. Her family became known for their dedication, and neighbors often offered support, delivering food, assisting with chores, or providing counsel. Life in the village required interdependence, and Marie's plight became a subtle reminder of the communal bonds that sustained rural populations in medieval Europe. The years wore on. Marie's siblings grew into adulthood, their experiences shaped not only by the demands of survival but by the constant awareness of their sister's fragile existence. They were witnesses to a miracle by the standards of their time, a child who survived what many would have considered a fatal injury or illness. They carried stories of her into adulthood, preserving the memory of her condition in a way that would later seed the folkloric transformations of her story. Chroniclers of the period provide glimpses of the household during these years. Letters and parish records describe a girl lying in a quiet room, her breathing steady but faint, attended daily by her mother. They record the care she received, the rituals performed to maintain her well-being, and the emotional toll on her family. The accounts are striking for their humanity. There is no mention of magic, no hint of enchantments, only the relentless passage of time and the profound endurance of parental love. Season after season, the world outside changed. Wars and famines swept through regions of France, yet Marie remained untouched, suspended in her silent vigil. Her continued survival became a topic of whispered curiosity among travelers and merchants passing through the region. Some claimed that her parents had discovered a miraculous treatment, though in reality it was vigilance, patience, and meticulous care that had preserved her life. Over time, the story of the sleeping girl spread beyond the village. It was told around hearths and in marketplaces, its details morphing with each retelling. Listeners marveled at her longevity in a state of unconsciousness, attributing it to divine intervention or mystical forces. Yet historians examining the case see it as a convergence of human endurance, observational care, and the limitations of medieval medicine. Her life became a bridge between ordinary existence and the extraordinary, a real-life narrative that would later inspire legend. Marie's condition also influenced local beliefs about health, childhood, and vulnerability. Parents became more vigilant, midwives more cautious, and communities more attuned to the fragile rhythms of life. Her case, preserved in records and oral histories, demonstrated that extraordinary events could occur within ordinary lives, and that human devotion could sustain life in ways that even the most learned physicians might not fully understand. During this long period, Marie remained unaware of the passage of years, of the world around her, and of the transformations in the village and family. Her mind, untouched by memory or experience during the coma, emerged only later into a world that had aged without her. In the surrounding villages, her story became emblematic of resilience, of hope, and of the mysterious forces, medical, environmental, or spiritual, that shaped human life. The tale of Marie in these years is not one of enchantment or fantasy. It is a story of endurance, of a family's devotion against overwhelming odds, and of the mysteries that human physiology can present. It reflects the harsh realities of medieval life, where children were vulnerable, medical knowledge was limited, and survival often depended on persistence, observation, and community. Even centuries later, historians find in Marie's case a striking testament to the intersection of human care, biological anomaly, and cultural narrative. It is a story that explains how the myth of Sleeping Beauty could arise, a girl in a prolonged unconscious state, watched over by those who loved her, preserved by patience and vigilance, and eventually remembered as a figure of extraordinary endurance. By the end of this long period, the story of Marie was firmly embedded in the oral traditions of the region. People spoke of her in hushed tones, recounting the miracle of her survival, the devotion of her parents, and the way her existence seemed to bridge the ordinary with the extraordinary. It was this foundation, grounded in historical reality, that would later evolve into the familiar fairy tale, transformed, romanticized, and simplified, but rooted in the remarkable endurance of a real girl in a medieval world. After years of quiet stillness, Marie finally stirred. The first signs were subtle, a faint twitch of a finger, a shallow sigh, an eyelid flickering against the soft light filtering through the window. Those who had tended her daily, the mother who had never left her side, the father who had carried the burdens of survival, and neighbors who had grown used to her presence, watched in awe and cautious disbelief. Life, it seemed, had returned to a girl who had been suspended in time. Her awakening did not occur in a single dramatic moment, as stories would later portray, but gradually. For days, she blinked at the unfamiliar ceiling, adjusted to the feel of her limbs, and reacquainted herself with the sounds of birds, the murmur of the stream, and the voices of people who had matured without her. The world outside had continued its rhythm, trees had grown taller, cottages had weathered seasons, and children who had once played alongside her were now adults. Yet, within the walls of her family home, the continuity of care had preserved her, a constant amidst change. Local healers were consulted once more, not to awaken her, she was already conscious, but to help restore her body weakened by years of inactivity. Light physical therapy, herbal tonics, and careful observation allowed her to regain strength. Chroniclers who later recorded the event emphasized the care and meticulous attention provided by her parents, noting that no magic had been required, only dedication, patience, and survival knowledge from generations of practical experience. Her awakening had profound effects on the family and village alike. Marie's parents, now older and grayed by the passage of years, were struck by a mixture of relief, astonishment, and quiet joy. Her siblings, who had assumed the roles of adults in her absence, were humbled to witness the resilience of the girl who had endured so much without awareness. Neighbors gathered to witness the phenomenon, blending wonder, relief, and reverence. Travelers who had once whispered of the sleeping child of Saint Laurent now carried accounts of her reawakening, a story that seemed impossible but was witnessed by many. For historians, Marie's return to consciousness is remarkable not only as a medical anomaly but also as a social event. It illustrates how communities in medieval Europe navigated extraordinary circumstances without recourse to modern medicine. Ritual, observation, communal support, and sheer persistence were central to survival. Her case became a source of study, discussion, and oral storytelling, emphasizing human endurance as much as the mysteries of biology. As Marie began to interact more with her surroundings, she discovered a world both familiar and alien. Her home was the same, yet subtly altered by the years. Furniture shifted, animals had grown or been replaced, and the rhythms of village life had adjusted in her absence. She had to learn to walk more steadily, to remember daily routines, and to reacquaint herself with social norms she had never truly learned. Yet despite these challenges, her spirit was undiminished. She embodied the quiet strength of survival, the resilience that had kept her alive, and the human capacity to endure the unimaginable. The villagers began to weave her story into the broader tapestry of local legend. They spoke of the girl who had slept through years, emphasizing her survival and the devotion of her family. Bards and storytellers, intrigued by the account, adapted the tale for audiences beyond the village, incorporating dramatic elements to capture attention. Over time, embellishments crept in: the girl's long sleep, the mysterious circumstances of her injury, and the eventual awakening became romanticized. Yet the kernel of truth remained: a child of extraordinary endurance, preserved by care and circumstance in a harsh medieval world. Marie's story also shaped local culture. Parents recounted it to warn children of dangers in climbing structures or venturing alone into forests. Midwives and healers used it to illustrate the importance of attentive care, and clergy saw in her recovery a moral tale of human perseverance aligned with divine providence. The tale became symbolic, yet rooted in concrete historical reality: a child who survived against the odds, a family that sacrificed and persevered, and a community that bore witness to a rare phenomenon. Historians looking back centuries later see in Marie's experience a convergence of biology, environment, and human care. While modern medicine might now explain her coma as the result of traumatic brain injury, infection, or metabolic disorder, the social context remains invaluable. It reveals how medieval Europeans understood the limits of life and the importance of communal support, and how extraordinary events could inspire generations of storytellers. The story of Marie, the real Sleeping Beauty, endured because it embodied universal human themes: the fragility of life, the endurance of love, the mysteries of the body, and the marvel of survival. It reminds us that behind every legend is a real story, often stranger and more remarkable than fiction. By the late 15th and 16th centuries, as literacy spread and printed books began circulating, the oral tradition surrounding Marie inspired the earliest written versions of the Sleeping Beauty tale. Over centuries, these accounts were romanticized, transformed into fairy tales, and finally codified in collections of folklore. Yet the essence, the girl who survived, the devotion that protected her, and the extraordinary passage of time, remains rooted in the historical reality of her life. Marie herself lived quietly after her awakening, resuming a life as ordinary as it was remarkable. She married within the local community, bore children, and maintained connections with her family and neighbors. Her story, retold in whispers and recorded by chroniclers, became a testament to the extraordinary in the ordinary, a reminder that reality itself can be more compelling than the myths it inspires. Centuries later, when audiences encounter the tale of Sleeping Beauty, they imagine curses, enchanted sleep, and magical awakenings. Yet the truth, when examined through the lens of history, is a narrative of resilience, human care, and the mysteries of life and medicine. The girl who slept was neither royal nor magical. She was real, human, and enduring, a figure whose quiet strength continues to inspire, and whose story reminds us that history is often stranger than fiction.